I'm Mr. O. Mr. O is the dog training place. And I feel it's necessary to do this interview on YouTube for the recent events that's been on Channel 10 and Channel 11 KDKA News about a therapy dog or a service dog fraud that I was unjustly accused of having something to do with. I want to start from the beginning so that you understand the whole story, and this is my story and this is the truth, and everything that I'm going to tell you right now, I have document to back it up. And right now I'm doing this interview waiting for Channel KDKA News to get back with me to allow me to come on and tell my story. But meanwhile, I'm going to do this interview on YouTube. The donor that actually paid for this wants to be anonymous, so we're not going to mention her name. But the donor met this lady, this girl Peaches, and her mother at some event. And then she came to me afterwards and saying that she would like to have me train a dog for Peaches. And she said that Peaches had a hard time walking and doing different things with a disease that she had. And she wanted a support dog for her, and she was going to pay for it, but she wanted to be anonymous. So I said, that's fine, we can do that. She offered me $10,000 to train this dog for Peaches. So naturally I accepted, and I thought it would be a very, very worthwhile project to do. And it just was a wonderful thing for her to want to do that. So I said, first thing we'd do an evaluation. So she paid me for an evaluation, and I went there, Peaches, met Peaches, her mother, and I guess her stepfather, Mark. I thought they was a great family at one time, and had a wonderful evaluation with Peaches. So I came back and reported to the donor what the interview was, told her what we needed, and I said I'd get started right away on finding a dog. So the donor then said, well, we have 2 checks for $5,000 each. She said, you can cash the first check, and then the second check will be cashed once you find a dog and get started with the training and make sure that the dog will be okay for Peaches. So I did find a dog. It was an Airedale, and I bought the Airedale from a breeder. Now, the breeder, Shirley Bills, is the owner of the dog, or was the owner of the dog. She went on Channel 11 News saying that, well, no, I donated the dog for Peaches. That's not true. I have a signed agreement, training agreement, bill of sale, that says I bought this dog from Shirley Bills, and in the agreement of getting Amaya, that's the name of the dog, we were going to train another dog for her. So I have that all agreement, and I have that in writing that I'm going to show to Channel 11 News when they come. So I have that document. But anyway, I went there, I got the Airedale, trained the Airedale, put some training on the Airedale so that I could bring the dog over to Peach's house so that she could spend the weekend with the dog and see how the dog is, to see the bonding effect that they would have. So that's what I did, and over Thanksgiving weekend, I believe it was Friday evening, myself and my camera person, we went to their house with Amara, showed them what to do with Amara so that the dog could stay there for the weekend and they'd have a bonding effect. One of the reasons that I purchased Amara for this girl was there were 2 reasons. One is the dog had a really good temperament, and that's something these days hard to find in a dog. And also, more hard to find was the dog had a loving nature. The dog wanted to be loved, so I thought this would be the perfect dog. So I took it there, dropped it off that weekend, came back the next Sunday. The dog was stayed there for the weekend, went back, got the dog. They loved the dog. And they said, well, the dog is a little short. And I said, well, we can get a harness for the dog. So Mark helped me measure the harness when I was there, and we got the harness made by an Amish people over in Indiana. It took a while for them to get the harness made. So I took the dog from there. Everybody was absolutely happy. The very next day, Tony, the mother, called me on the phone and said, listen, we want you to go forward with the training. She had an agreement. She wanted me to sign an agreement with her for $5,000 that I would train this dog for Peaches for $5,000. She wanted me to sign the agreement with her. That's the mother of Peaches. So they must have been extremely happy with the dog in order for her to call me the next day and want to get an agreement written up right away. Well, I couldn't do it that day. I was hunting, so she ended up sending a text to my web guy who does all my texting and wanted to confirm with the text that I would do the agreement. Well, what I did, that didn't sound right for me because, first of all, they didn't have a nickel involved. Peaches' parents did not pay 1 penny for this dog. The donor was already paying, so for her to want to get an agreement with me did not sound right. So I told the donor about that, and I said it didn't sound right. She said it didn't sound right either. She was going to go ahead and talk to the owners about that. So all the negativity that Tony, the mother of Peaches, had on there, and Peaches herself, because Peaches loved this dog when I was there. I have that on video. Loved the dog when the dog was there. She couldn't say enough about the dog. So the next day they want me to train the dog, and now they're on the news saying, well, we don't want this dog is too small, can't do the job, and all this, to say all this negative stuff. But yet, she wanted me to sign an agreement the very next day about having to train the dog. So that doesn't sound too kosher there. And again, I do have information that back all this story up. So what had happened from that point on, the donor had given me 2 checks for $5,000 each. One check, she said I can cash now, and the other one I could cash once we get things going and get the training started. So I went ahead, got the dog trained, dropped it off over there. They loved the dog. I called the donor back and told her the situation about the owner trying to do the agreement. And from that point on, it all fell apart. Because at that point, Tony, their husband, Mark, and Peaches all of a sudden didn't want anything to do with the dog. And I thought that was a little strange. Because I thought that they really wanted to get $5,000, because I mentioned to them about another $5,000 that I'd be receiving for the dog. So, went to the donor. The second check that the donor said I would have ended up not being any good. So I called the donor back. I said, what's going on? And the donor at that point was all upset with me, saying, no, I don't know if we want to do the dog is too small, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, the dog is going to be trained. So I went ahead and completely trained this dog, Amara, to be a support dog. I trained this dog in 3 weeks completely. Now I do have a videotape of that dog, of the training that we did with the dog, so you're going to be able to see all that on the news as well. Now I went ahead and trained the dog, and then I told Shirley, the owner, I said I'd let you know what's going on when Peaches takes the dog, and see if Peaches wanted to be in contact with her, to send some texts and some pictures and things. But I said I couldn't guarantee anything. So after I told the owner what was going on, I said, well, there's a little controversy with the dog, but I'm really thinking Peaches is going to take the dog. Well, and I said, this dog is completely trained already. Well, the owner heard that. She's been wanting another service dog. Actually, Shirley Bills, to go backwards, I already trained a service dog for her, Rhea. If you look at my website, mrrose.biz, log on to the service page, you're going to see her doing the testimony for me on my website. And she couldn't do nothing but praise me. She praised me up and down with the testimony she did on my website. But now, all of a sudden, now on the news, she's saying, oh, this guy stole my dog and did all these things, and it's a very negative thing. So that's right there, a controversy right there. So anyway, so Shirley Bills went on the news talking about me stealing the dog from her and all those things. That's absolutely false. And I have documentation to prove that that's false as well, because I did purchase a dog from her. There was no donation. She wasn't donating the dog. There was no talk of me giving the dog back to her if it didn't work with Peaches, because at the time when I got the dog from her, everything was fine with Peaches and her family. They were ready to get the dog, so there'd be no reason for me to tell Shirley, well, if she doesn't take the dog, we'll get the dog back for you, because I was under the point that they were going to take the dog, because there was no problem with that at all until all this thing came about. So anyway, where we are right now is the donor was very upset with me for some reason. I'm thinking that Tony must have said something to her negative about me, because I said something negative about her, which I could prove about the agreement that she wanted me to sign. So now it's on the news that they want the dog back, that I stole the dog from Shirley Bills, which obviously I just explained that I did not. And so now I'm going to go on 11 o'clock news and show documentation, videotapes of all the things that I've said on the YouTube. But I wanted to say that just to clear the message. The story here is I can train a service dog, actually a support dog, in 3 weeks. I do PTSD dogs in 5 days. That's amazing. And the reason it's amazing, it's a gift from God that I have of communication. Not that I'm abusive. If I was abusive, I couldn't train these dogs in a short period of time. Now, my Facebook has taken some terrible, terrible hits from people that I don't even know. People that saw this story and the misrepresentation that it was, and they put all kinds of comments on there. I don't even know some of those people on there. So the people that are throwing comments on my Facebook, they need to look at my website. Everything on there is all the training I've done. My profile is on there. Everything is out for them to see. They need to go to my website, look at that, and then make a comment on what they know. As far as them just talking out of the side of their mouth or whatever they're doing about oh, Mr. O did this and Mr. O did that, that's all false. Most of the people on there I don't even know. You know, they're saying, oh, he shouldn't have did this or that, and they're allowed to have comments, but they need to do some research on Mr. O. He's been in business for 20-some years, a dog trainer in Vietnam. There's no way that I'd be abusing dogs. I love dogs. The whole idea that I got into the dog world was to change the dog world, was to show people that need service dogs that they don't have to wait a whole year to get a dog. I can do a dog in 5 days, PTSD dog. All these veterans that are suffering waiting for PTSD dogs. I have the answer. That's the story. The story that should be told is about what we can do for people, what we can do for veterans, what I can do for people. That's the service dog talent that I have. Train a dog completely in 3 weeks to do a support dog. You're going to be able to see Amaya working, doing everything she's trained to do on a videotape. And we did that in 3 weeks. So I wanted to do this interview, and I'm hoping that the people who's putting all these comments on my website will see this interview, go to my website, MrO's.biz, find the truth about Mr. O. Tell people, hey, Mr. O's a good guy. He can train your dog for you. He's the man that's going to change the dog world, and that's why I do what I do. And that's all I have to say.